You were sitting 2 hours ago. When you leave, you are 2,000 miles away. You are like, what is he talking about? Here's what I'm talking about, very simple. The Earth, you are serious to have to be, this is what the Earth looks like. You like it or not? You can see the Earth from satellites, from the space station. This is what it looks like. Take it or leave it, accept it, that's a fact. So here is Tehachapi. The Earth is going around its axis. Imagine there's an imaginary road right in the middle. It's doing this every 24 hours, makes a full circle. Every hour, Tehachapi, your theater where you're sitting, it was here. By the time you finish seminar, it has moved to this, from this position to this position. An hour later, you're going to be here. Hour later, you're going to be here. So you are in a different location in space, 1,000 miles away every hour. Do we feel it? You see you are moving that fast? You don't. Let me tell you something else. You think you are only 1,000 miles away in space and time? You are much more than that. Because Earth is not only doing this, at the same time it's going around the sun. Right? How fast is going around the sun? It is traveling near 70,000 miles per hour. So where does that leave you every hour? Where were you an hour ago? Where are you now in space and time? If that's not good enough, you know, yeah, you got the point. I'm not going to dwell on it. But now, this solar system, I can hold only one planet in my hand. There are like 9 of them. This whole system at the same time is going around. This is doing all of that, but it's also going around the galaxy, the center of the galaxy, about 500,000 miles an hour. Now where does that take you? Well, if that's not good enough, I'll tell you that the entire galaxy, the 200 billion stars, are moving at about 750,000 miles per hour. They are hurtling in space towards Andromeda galaxy. They're going to collide in 3 billion years. I think you got the point. We are not very aware of what goes on. I want to give you a few other examples, and if you're interested in this kind of entertainment, examples are not tens or hundreds or thousands. They are like never-ending examples of this kind. How many of you are aware? I'm just making it fun. I don't want to make this seminar boring, so let's give some examples. How many of you are aware, I mean, of course, some of you are aware of this fact because you learned some science in school, but if that you do not have access to that knowledge, if you start theoretically, it's not possible. If you start walking in a straight line and you keep walking, let's say for about 2 years, and you're going to say, you know, it seems like I'm 20, 30,000 miles away from where I started, away from Tehachapi. And all of a sudden, you emerge from behind the wall. You back end up in the same theater. You say, what happened? I must be drunk. I made a wrong turn. Because, obviously, I think you got the message. You started here, you walk around, you came back, and we are not aware of that. Okay, so there are many, we're not going to bring them up because that's not the topic of the discussion. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of optical illusions designed by psychologists. They can put a picture on the screen and you will say it's moving. It's not really moving because the colors can fool your eyes, the fovea in the back of your eye. And there are many things that are moving, you think they are still. And you can't recognize. Eyes can be, brain and eyes can be fooled all the time. The famous one of this Mueller-Lyer illusion. Now, a lot of us don't realize that the light, this comes from bulb, it's like any other electromagnetic radiation, just like the sun. It takes nearly just over 1 second from here to reach the moon. which is 250,000 miles away. That sounds very fast, right? But the universe that we live in, that we are part of, that we never think about, is so big that actually this speed is so slow that you will never get you anywhere. Never get you anywhere. You can be traveling for billions of miles. It will not get you anywhere. It will barely get you out of the solar system. So, you know, the Voyager 2, it's 12 billion miles away. We left in 1977. It's also 33 years later. It's still and it's traveling at 70, 80,000 miles per hour. And it's barely, I have to look up or calculate to see when it will leave the solar system. It will take forever. Now, you realize that simple things that we use in our daily lives, we don't realize how they work. For example, we assume that we are born, we grow old, and we get sick, and then we die. That's how we look upon the conception of time. And unless you have a little bookish knowledge, you would not think about generally that time is something which is not static. Time can stop. Time can slow down. Time can stop. How many of you know that GPS system that everybody punch in your car and get you everywhere? That works on this concept. The 24 satellites, they send messages of time, what time is, and that adjustment is readily every day. That adjustment of time difference is made by the Navy, US Navy, wherever this GPS system is. They have to constantly make that. It's the time difference over there and here that gets you where you want to go. If they do not do that adjustment, you punch in the address for Tehachapi and you will end up in Lancaster. So we are not aware of these things. Now you might object and say, well, you know, you're giving all these fancy examples. How about talk about consciousness, about the immediate environment? I mean, how the hell I'm supposed to know what's going on out there in the stars? I want to know, am I conscious about what's going on in and around me? And we all feel pretty confident that we know what's going on in the environment. And it turns out that we don't know much of it. And there are many, many examples again. You know, how many of us are aware that right on our skin there are billions in the skin? The pellet of poop that comes out has billions of living creatures in it. Our body, inside and out. Do we know anything? Because we don't see it. We are totally oblivious of what is very, 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 very small or what is very, 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 very big. On both sides, we are clueless. We can see and understand and appreciate only things that are about the same size, medium size that we are. We see them, we respond, those are the things we interact with. Which is what? Maybe not even one, a small fraction of the universe. We do not interact with 99.9% of the universe. We are clueless what's going on, with very few exceptions. Now, a prime example of that will be, let's get more specific. You think, you believe you know what's going on, that you trust your eyes. How many of you trust your eyes? What you see is true. I just taught my, and a lot of you know that trick, that here I can position myself and you will see that I uplifted into air. And some people will say, oh my God, I swear, this magician cut the lady into 3 pieces. I swear. And if I tell you that actually that's not true, and I'm going to explain to you how the magician did that. And some people just don't want to know. They want to live in fantasy because it's magic. You see a magician walking on water? Oh, you put your hand underneath and there's nothing underneath. He must be walking on water. This must be true. This is bizarre. I have seen magic before, but this one is really bizarre. This is something, this guy knows something that nobody else does. See how you live life in illusion? You trust your eyes. eyes and the brain. This happens all the time. That's what magicians do for a living. Give you a couple of more examples, then we move on, because we don't want to dwell on this. You know the baby, if you watch children, we all have children, and when they grow up, when they are like 2 years old, they will stand in front of the mirror, they will touch. They have not yet developed a sense of self. They do not yet know that this is, I am a person. So they look in the mirror, do these experiments. There are primates who can recognize. They know that that's me. But even children, humans, at a certain stage, they begin to develop a sense of self. And beyond a certain age, they do not know that they are looking at. So they will experiment and put their tongue against the mirror and all kind of fun things. They are fun to watch. It's during the brain development that at some time your consciousness, your awareness starts to improve. That is why consciousness is something that can evolve. You can train in becoming more and more aware of this environment. Many, many years ago, when I used to do discourses in my offices, we had a brochure I called the Sing Awareness Center, because that's where, it's the awareness of your environment, of understanding what goes on, will make you a person who is now have the ability to actually enact the changes, to execute changes in your life. And why awareness is important. And you can expand on it. And there's no limit to where you can become. And you don't necessarily have to see it with your eyes, but this is the beauty of the human brain and human mind, that you can take those ideas by using your imagination. You can construct wonderful things out of that. When Einstein was able to just contemplate on this problem, figure out that time, the space and time, they are the same thing. They are aspects of the same reality. That it's a dimension of space. So now we know that space has 3 dimensions. It has length. You can either go this way, or you can go forward or backward, or you can go up or down. That's what we always thought. Now we know there's a 4th dimension, time. Now I know it's unintuitive, but it's mathematically proven. You have equations. So that's the fact of science. So all these fancy examples does not get us off the hook of not wanting to explain consciousness. We still have the challenge at hand to explain what is this phenomenon, because it's very amazing. And there are 2 questions come up. One is the age-old question of subjective experience. And I will tell you, philosophers call it qualia. I don't really like that word, but nonetheless, we have to explain that. Let me give you some examples. When you experience a headache, let's say I'm telling you that I have a headache, and assuming that you never had a headache in your life, which is not in most cases, all of us have a headache at some time in our life, but let's say you never had a headache. Now I'm trying to explain to you, I have a headache. I have pain in my head, and you are looking at me, yeah, you believe me, but can you understand that experience of headache if I told you, if you never had the headache before? Is that possible? Okay, now I go and take a rose flower. You have a question? Sorry. You take a rose flower and I smell it. Smell of a rose. Now again, the problem is most of us have experienced rose, so when I tell you I smell the rose, you will understand because you correlate to your own experience. But let's say rose was one of those rare flowers, right, that you have never smelled. Will you be able to understand what I'm saying? Smell of a rose, what that smell is like. Is there any way? This has been a big problem. The subjective experience, what is it? The internal subjective